correctly or incorrectly that it must be so nice for Noachides to have forums to be with Noachides. You know, I mean, all of you probably live in different places and do or don't have the luxury of other people near you. So it's really nice that we can have virtual connections and still be connected, learn, and just connect. Just feel, you know, just feel there's a number of you. All right. So anyone would like to share? This past week was Purim. So I don't know if I know about it last week. So did anyone have anything they'd like to share from Purim? How was your Purim?
She's asking how your Purim was. Miss Turin wants to know how your Purim was.
Did you have a fun time?
We made chocolate chip cookies.
Oh my gosh, your mommy let chocolate chip cookies? I'm shocked.
We tried to make the traditional cookie and we had a bit of an issue. So
it became a chocolate. It was a hummus chocolate and it became a chocolate chip cookie.
Supposed to be for 1 hour, but instead it was 12 hours.
Oh my gosh. Oh my god.
We were still able to take some baskets to our friends, weren't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
You did. You brought baskets to friends. That's so nice. Purim is such a wonderful holiday. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Gershom. I still can't wait. Now the weather is warm. There's no reason you can't drive over.
That's right.
Okay.
Now that it's warming up, we can come visit.
Anyone else had something they'd like to share from Purim? What they
the snap.
Thursday night, Friday? Anyone else had something nice going on Thursday night, Friday that they felt the Purim energy? I was very, I don't know, I felt very strongly like Purim. It was very nice, even though it was like very, you know, when it's on Friday, it's very pressured. It's very pressured. But I really felt, you know, I had a little gathering Thursday night, probably a little Corona limited by, you know, people that are willing to still come to your house. But it was still very, very, very nice. I really felt like, wow, this was because of Purim. I felt like Purim, that it was just felt so nice. And Friday felt so nice, and I don't even know why. It also was crazy busy. I'm not exactly sure why that either. But it was intently busy, but it felt very special. Just felt good. Just felt very, very, very good. So I hope other people also managed to tune into that Purim energy and feel the good, the salvation, God's kind power shining, saying, I'm taking care of you. You know, when you turn away from me, you know, things happen. But as soon as you remember me, I'm right here with you. I'm just waiting for you to turn and remember me. That's so much of what's happening, Purim. God just saying, of course, just remember me. Just remember who to turn to, and that's it. All right. So we are, my marker's not anywhere near where it's supposed to be. So we are still continuing. I'm doing this book of all different thoughts of the Rebbe, all different ideas of the Rebbe in connection to Noachides, lots of different sort of a smorgasbord of ideas. So the first thing I was going to touch on is very interesting because, you know, the Lubavitcher, or you don't know, Lubavitcher Rebbe sent literally thousands of emissaries all over the world. All over the world. Wherever you go, you should find some, as they call it, Chabad house. A location where there's a nice rabbi and his wife and family that are doing whatever they can to promote Judaism, connect with people, help people, promote God, literally all over the world. But the Rebbe came out to the shluchim, to the emissaries, that's the term for the emissary, shluchim, and he said to them that that's not their only mission. They're not only there to find every Jew, to help every Jew in physical needs and spiritual needs, connect them to God. They're there for mankind. Because there's a whole world of people. There's 8 billion people that also are supposed to have a relationship with God. And for those 8 billion people, it's actually, in a certain sense, the primary job of the emissary to help mankind connect to God by keeping the Noahide laws. So have you, I know different people have had different experiences, maybe some of you live with near these emissaries and not, but what has been your experience? Danielle?
I mean, obviously, well, I don't know who's considered that specifically. Like, from my perspective, I mean, you and Rabbi Turin are that, right? And then your
Definitely.
son, yeah, your son in
I
Springfield
think
and
definitely,
his
yeah.
beautiful family. And then we've gotten to experience the family here since we moved, which you know, because she was one of your
She was
students.
my former student.
Yeah.
And she's also warm and welcoming, right?
Yes, thank God. I mean, we've had nothing but beautiful experiences in every scenario with anyone related to the Chabad centers that we've spoken with or worked with. They've been nothing but welcoming and became, good friends and close with every, really every group we've been involved in. And so, oh, Becca, are you from Springfield?
My son's Springfield, Illinois. I think we once found out there's a Springfield in every state. Where are you connected to, Becca? Springfield in which state?
But we don't go to the restaurant
Missouri.
anymore.
He's in Illinois.
Oh, sorry.
That's wonderful. That's really important because that's
Yes,
exactly what the Rebbe wants. That everybody should recognize that's our job. That there's
and very important work. Like without that, I mean, honestly, without that, even with all of the teachings and non-Jewish, B'nai Noach, Noahide, whatever you want to call it, teachings that are happening online. I mean, like, think of this one, Cyril. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be on this call right now talking. And it's just, honestly, it helps grow, makes you feel part of something, even if you 100% aren't a part of it, right? Because it is more geared toward the Jewish community, but they're very welcoming, at least in every scenario I've been a part of with non-Jews. And it really helps you feel more of a physical connection and more of a community. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like where James and I would be without you and Rabbi Turin, what you guys have done for us. And then this, the group that's up here, it's such beautiful work. I mean, yeah.
That's really important because
it is.
I think that's one of the huge challenges of the Noahide. I always feel this. It must be the challenge is loneliness. Just feeling like, there's you and there's God, and that's the ultimate important thing. That's the most important thing. As I was telling one of my children recently, that's the most important thing. But it's hard to have a sense of community if there's nobody around. And unfortunately, again, some of you, like, you're in places like wherever you said, Southern Missouri. I don't know if there are any Chabad houses there. I don't know. I could look for you. I don't know. But when you can be embraced and become part of a community, even if it's not exactly your community, and even if obviously some of the things are not going to be geared 100% for you, but it still helps. It helps you and it moves you forward because as you see things, you pick up things. You modify
That's
things.
a good point. Yeah,
you.
That's a good point. It helps you deepen your connection with Hashem, of course, because and you see that example, right? Maybe not exactly what you're trying to become, which is, not everyone necessarily wants to become Jewish or convert, but you see that good example of a family and how people are living, connecting to God. It's a beautiful thing that we don't see, very sadly, in most people in the average person, right? So it's really useful in many different ways.
And you do modify things, and that's fine, Becca, because like Danielle's saying, if she's going to see something, she could say, well, maybe I wouldn't do that with my kids, but I could do it my way with my kids. Maybe I'm not going to do this with my husband, but I could do this with my husband, or this with myself, or take on this prayer or this custom. Again, whatever's going to propel you forward and make you feel, more connection to God. So Joliet, is that near Springfield? I'm not very good at Southern Illinois map. I don't know where Joliet is. But if it is, And if
I
you're
think
near
that's a
enough,
suburb.
oh, it's near Chicago. Oh, that's where I am.
It's a suburb.
Okay. I was gonna say, because if you're near Springfield, you could check on my son, who also, thank God, has a class once a week for Noachides. He has very close, it's very beautiful, the Noachides that he's connected to in Springfield, Illinois, and Noachides he's helped become. They weren't Noachides before he came there, but he's really connected to people searching for God. And there's this, I think it's because we're so close to the redemption that there's, wherever you turn, wherever you scratch, you find people searching for God. And it's there. And then he learns with them, he has classes with them, and then they move and become Noachides, which is really beautiful. So anyone else besides Danielle have had that experience? I know Dixie has, right? Dixie, you have.
I needed to tell you, Dixie is not going to be, she's just listening tonight. She's
Okay.
not going to be able to talk. So sorry.
Okay, another quiet one.
That was my job. I'm supposed
No,
to tell
okay, you
that.
conveyed it. And Becca said no. And Jenny, I don't think yet. Sally, what about you? Have you had any connections to any Chabad emissaries that have helped you along your journey?
I've not.
Not.
No.
Where do you live?
In Texas.
Where in
And,
Texas?
Well, it's Mount Vernon. It's northeast Texas, and it's rural.
Rural.
Yes.
Yeah, so if it's rural, they're probably not there because
Yeah.
emissaries are more likely in the cities.
Mm-hmm.
I know there are a lot in Texas. I also know there's lots of Noachides in Texas. I don't know what it is about the air of Texas. We've had so many people on this class that are from Texas. It's like, oh, I don't know where you're from. You must be from Texas. There's just something in that air there that just helps breed Noachides. But okay, but do you have other Noachides near you?
No, I don't know any around here.
So thank God for online, for internet, for Zoom,
And
for classes.
Your class. I appreciate every week to get to hear you.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, Jenny, you said you started, I know you have also some online connections because somehow I didn't even exactly get the connection who it was, but someone connected you to me. So somehow you connected to someone who connected to someone who connected to me, which was really nice. And I was happy because that also opened up for you a lot of classes, a lot of abilities. But this is the Rebbe's mandate. You know, this is what the Lubavitcher Rebbe is saying to his whole army, a worldwide army of tens of thousands of people. And wherever you are, you should know that, you know, and I would hope again, Danielle reached out to me. She's part of the army. She's helping connect. No, it's really true. I really meant what I said. I've thought this many times that for a Noahide, there's a loneliness unless you happen to be from Texas and live in a place in Texas where there's other people near you. And I know there are in Texas, you know, but no, it's wherever you are. The truth is every one of you should keep your eyes open for other people that also either do have that relationship or are searching, you know, are looking. That's how you create a network, by co-opting your friends and sharing with them the truth. But this is really the Rebbe's mandate to all of his emissaries. Know, equally important, in a sense, primarily important, is to reach out to the world and connect them to God. It's interesting. The Rebbe didn't explain himself. Why is it primarily important? You could say it's okay. It's on the spectrum, on the radar. Why is it primarily important? But maybe because my explanation, which I'm not saying is the truth, is that maybe because this is bringing redemption. That's our mission, is to bring redemption. And when mankind recognizes God, that's redemption. Maybe that's why the Rebbe is saying it's primarily important to reach the Noachides, because this is mankind recognizing God. This is redemption. That was one thought of the Rebbe I wanted to share. The next one, I thought the Rebbe, the whole idea in terms of understanding the dynamics of the souls, which we have touched on at various points, of a Noachide. You know, we could it's sort of it's sort of hard to understand, and I can't tell you if it's every one of you was born different than all of the rest of mankind, or you made choices and then those choices made your soul power different. And it might be some and some, because some people I know have told me from birth they just always looked at things differently, and they always, whatever it was, rejected Christianity, believed in God, each person, whatever they understood. And some people it really has been a from birth process, and some people it's a lifetime of searching, and some people just sort of morphed into it. But when someone is a real, complete Noahide in our world today, because in our world today, anyone who's a Noahide is doing it for real, because there's no coercion on you, there's no force. It's purely your own desire to have this type of relationship with God. So anyone who is a Noahide has a different soul energy than any other non-Jew in the world. Because every non-Jew has an animal soul, which is the godly vitality, but it's an animal soul from a level that's Kabbalistically called klipa tmeya, which means there's an inability to access that energy. Okay, so that's interesting. So Becca is saying partially you intuited some things, and then as time went on, you also came to understand or learned or found that information, which could be that it was, we might call it a from birth experience. And I think some are from birth. I think actually it makes a lot of sense. Some are from birth because of the difference in soul power. And maybe really everyone is from birth, but they're just not accessing it. And I'm saying I really don't know the answer to that. I definitely know, because I've heard from this class, women who definitely from a young age, without anybody teaching them and anyone telling them, in themselves, they had an awareness that definitely is a Noachide. Before they knew the term Noachide, before they knew what God wanted from them, they were there. And for other people, seemingly it came through the process of people they met and their own exploration and their own journeys and what they stumbled across. But maybe they really always were potential Noachides in their soul powers. And that's why they met those people and learned those informations, and something ignited in their soul because it was all there to start with. But a regular Gentile who is not yet accessing himself as a Noahide, he has godly energy inside of him. Everything does. Everything does, and everyone does. Oh, well, the world he can't exist. But a godly energy that he does not have the ability to directly access. But a Noachide also has an animal soul, but the animal soul is from a different spiritual matter. It's from a matter that's called Kabbalistically klipas noiga. Noiga means a shine, a glow of light. So klipas noiga means there's barriers, but through those barriers, the light can shine through. And that is why a Noachide has the ability to serve God altruistically as a Noachide without any benefit besides a desire to connect to God, a desire to serve him, a desire to be with him, a desire to give to him, which is the desire of the Noachide. And that's why it says there's that special place in the world to come for Noachides, for people that served God as Noachides. So when you look back in history, because of course, as we mentioned recently, maybe 2 classes ago, we spoke about the idea of the righteous Gentiles during the Holocaust, people that literally risked their lives to save Jews. And the question is, were those people Noachides or not? And maybe they probably all weren't, but probably a large majority were. Even though maybe they didn't have the lexicon to know all of the rules, and maybe therefore they weren't following all the rules. But on a certain intuitive level, they must have had that basic belief in God, at least, which helped them risk their life to save another person and to save a Jew. But nowadays, unlike then, because if you look then, compared to everything going on, there was 26,000, which unfortunately was a tiny, tiny percentage compared to all the people that were involved in the murder of the Jews. But it was 26,000. But now it feels much, much more. Feels like so many people all over the world are finding their identity as a Noahide, which must mean that God at this point is giving many more people that soul ability. Of course, people have access to things they didn't have before, with information, via the internet, group, classes. You know, there are ways that people have to connect and find out things they weren't able to find out before, things that weren't accessible to them. People all over the world in very far-flung corners, but really have, courtesy of the World Wide Web, really have connected and really have been able to take this and to go with it. So it seems to me, at least, that the fact that the Rebbe is saying this is a campaign, frontally go out to the world to teach them the 7 Noachide laws, because really only a Noachide could do the 7 Noachide laws. So it's almost like, what comes first? You know, like they say, the chicken or the egg, what comes first? But as I understand it, there must be a lot of people in this world today that have the potential to be a Noachide, that have that soul potential. And that's why, if we're reaching out and trying to help the world connect to God, it happens. As versus in previous times where the numbers were much smaller, now it seems the potential numbers, not necessarily the actualized numbers, but the potential numbers must be far greater, that therefore it's something that's realistic for us to strive for, to reach out to the world and help them learn and connect to God as a Noahide. Any questions, any thoughts on this?
I have a little bit of something to say.
Sure.
So I've always felt very different from most people. And I grew up very different, actually. My mother, her mother insisted she be sent to Seventh-day Adventist schools. And so she did. But always, you know, when I was a kid, I looked at her and she was so strict about, like, my father was total Gentile. He, you know, he ate his bacon and sausage and everything. But she was so particular not to eat out of anything that his pork had even touched. She was so particular. And even her features, you know, I looked at her and I thought, she's Jewish. But she didn't grow up, you know, knowing Jewish or anything. But recently, you know, I always had different things going on in my life. Like, my dad had relatives that was in the Armstrong cult, but they kept the feasts and the Shabbat, you know, and we kept Shabbat loosely as Seventh-day Adventists. And then as I got older, I met people, you know, in the Hebrew roots, whatever you want to call it, Messianic, you know, and all that. And then I started, you know, getting in touch with these kind of people. And I started doing some searching, and one day somebody said to me, if you want to know the correct way, go to the people who have been doing it right for thousands of years, meaning the Jews. So I started learning from Jewish sources, going to Jewish, you know, Orthodox Jewish YouTube videos and watching them. And so now, you know, I mean, it kind of created a little bit of confusion, but it was good because I learned a lot of things. And just recently, you know, my mom's been bugging me to do a DNA test, and she told me she told me that I was born on a Yom Kippur Shabbat. She knew that, and born at 11:11 on a Yom Kippur Shabbat. And so I thought, oh, that's awesome, and so I really thought there was going to be a hope there, but no, it's just not meant to be. I think I did ask a rabbi one time, I mentioned some of this stuff, and he said, I think you were, you merited to be a righteous Gentile. And I didn't like that at first because I kind of wanted to be Jewish, but I think he's right now. But anyway, that's kind of my journey in a nutshell.
So what you're saying is really affirming this idea of those born with it. Now, by you were born with it. It wasn't something that because you happened to meet someone who was inspired and shared it with you, and it triggered something that was latent your whole life, as is the case for many real Noachides. By you, it was from birth, and maybe your holy birthday did impact your soul's journey into this world. That it was a little, I don't know that made it easier for you, but the coming to the truth was easier. It might not have been an eady journey, but coming to the truth was easier.
No, not an easy journey. I really was very religiously nomadic at adulthood. So,
yeah. But I would say that's I would say that is like the rabbi said to you. Again, I don't know the numbers of how many Noachides are in the world, but I know there's about 8 billion mankind. So if
that
there
doesn't
are,
even know it.
I have no clue. 10,000 Noachides out of 8 billion? I don't know if they're 10,000. There might be less. There might be more. I don't know. I'm picking up, to me, a big number, but out of 8 billion to be one of 10,000, it's a very great merit that God selected you to be part of those people that are able to serve him truly. And God willing, the whole world will someday, and then all of you are going to be the teachers for everyone else. But
I hope so.
To have that now is definitely a merit. It's a merit for every one of you. It's really a merit, and it's really, again, obviously everything is matching, meaning if God is selecting people to have the special soul energy, he'd be selecting people that their natural energy is most in sync with God's morality and God's vision of a good world, God's vision of world as a place of goodness and kindness and godliness. If he's going to select who's going to get this soul, he's not going to find the person that's most far from it to like really test the limits of can the soul overwhelm the person. He's obviously selecting people that their natural energy is very, very in tune with his vision of a godly world. And yes, every one of you merited, not just Becca, every one of you merited, because as I say, the numbers are definitely on the other side. I feel the same thing for myself. I just feel, wow, I'm so blessed because all the numbers are on the other side. And yet God gave me this journey. So for you, the numbers are all on the other side, and God gave you this journey. God hand selected you. That's very meritorious, very blessed for each one of you. Anyone else, any other thoughts on this idea of feeling in their own soul energy something different? Right, because it was hard, but it is a blessing. Blessings often come with price tags. I'm sure we've all experienced the price tags of our blessings, but it's still a blessing. Now, it's interesting what Danielle was saying before about being connected to various Chabad emissaries. Also, she was connected with other people that were Orthodox Jews, not Chabad emissaries, that made an impression on her and helped her in her journey. The Rebbe here says an interesting concept that when a person, meaning a non-Jew, sees the Jew learning Torah, sees the Jew praying, sees the Jew keeping the Sabbath, it really, really influences him. It really affects him on an inner dimension. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean that he's supposed to start doing all these things. Maybe they're not relevant to him. But they still affect him, and they still affect him in a very, very, very inner way, as exactly as Danielle was saying. It's not necessarily she's doing exactly what she saw, but she's doing something because of what she saw. So that's very, very, very much mirroring what the Rebbe is saying here. And especially, the Rebbe says, when the non-Jew sees the Jew doing things that are very relevant in his world, but doing it differently because he's a God-fearing Jew. Like, for example, the example the Rebbe gives is eating. Well, eating is relevant to all of us. So if you're by a supper meal or any meal with a God-fearing Jew, you can see how they're eating and see how they're relating to food or how they're relating to their family over the course of the meal. And that you relate to on a very, very inner way, because you also eat and you also have a family and you also sit down to a meal or not. And when you're seeing this, you can really absorb and change because of this. You know, if you would see, again, how a Jew would behave in a business. Well, I also have business. He has business, I have business. We have it the same. But I see because he's God-fearing, he's doing things differently. That could really resonate and make you also analyze how you could do it differently and how you could bring God more into your business. If you would see how a God-fearing woman is relating to her children, you have children, she has children, you're both mothers, you both have young children, so you can see how she's doing it, and this could help you in a real inner way think how you're going to do it. This very much echoes what Danielle said before. Now, obviously, as it came out, many of you are not in places where you're in rural Texas. I don't know how many God-fearing Jews you got there, or southern Missouri. But if you are in a place where there are Jews and Jews that serve God in your area, they're saying it really is worthwhile to develop this relationship, because both from the things that are relevant to you and from the things that aren't relevant to you, you'll be affected. From the things that aren't relevant to you, you might be affected in a more remote way, but it will still impact you. And from the things that really are in your world, you can be very affected, because you also have children, you also make suppers, you also have a business. So when you see how someone who's really living a godly life is doing it in all of these details that are so similar to your details, but different because they're done with this godly way, it really helps you realign yourself and say, oh, that's how I can do this in a much more godly way. So again, that's the advantage for those people that don't have the advantage of living in a rural place, have the advantage of living where there are other very God-fearing people that can really help you just by you being around them and picking up things that you wouldn't otherwise think of. So another thing the Rebbe says, that really sort of relates to how Jews are in terms of their own identity, but how it's really impacting the non-Jews around them, that when a Jew is serving God properly, it really affects the non-Jews. And therefore, it makes the non-Jews more able to serve God as well. And we view this sort of as like a ripple effect. You can envision a clear pond, clear, still water. It doesn't have to be so clear, just still, a still pond water. And you throw a pebble, at some point in the water, and then ripples start forming, and the ripples go further and further and further, and creating these broad ripples from that one stone you throw. And that's sort of the vision of how, when a Jew is serving God, like that stone that fell in the water, the ripples, the impact spreads and spreads and spreads. And that really could help Noachides all over the world come closer to God. As a Jew is striving to come closer to God, as the Jew is working harder on his relationship with God, he creates more godly energy in the world. And when there's more godly energy, it's more and more natural for someone to pick it up and to move to become that Noahide. Maybe somebody like Becca was saying, who was born with his potential, but sort of wandering to find themselves and find what they're doing with it. Or someone that didn't even know they were looking. But the more godly is the energy in the world, as per how well or not the Jews are serving God, this really affects the world. It's interesting because, coming from Purim, we see this very strongly. Why was Haman and Ahasuerus, why were they able to create this decree of genocide? Because the Jews messed up. Either, there's two opinions the sages give. Either they were enjoying the fact that they were invited to the king's feast. The fact that Ahasuerus thought them worthy to invite them to his feast, because that already meant they were like prioritizing a human being. And if this human being Ahasuerus likes us, that's good, that's cool, that's important. Or another opinion of the sages is there was an idol. I think it's all the way back to Nebuchadnezzar, that he had set up that the people had to bow to. And some of the Jews bowed, not that they bowed with any belief. They didn't believe in the idol at all. But Nebuchadnezzar said, if you don't bow, I'm going to kill you. So again, they're not believing the idol, but they're believing in a human, that he could harm them if they don't bow to the idol. And therefore they bow to the idol because they didn't want to get killed, which again means they're prioritizing a human and they're believing in a human. And both of these things are coming to the same point of them putting humans and their power over them. There's something that really has a power. And God was like, okay, if that's how you want to live that way. And then we could let other humans destroy you. But when they turned back to God, when the Jews repented, they fasted, they prayed, and they really, as we're saying, are prioritizing, no, God's the only power, God's the power, God, there is no other power, it's all God, it's only God, it's all God, it's only God. Well, that created the miracle of Purim. But what it also did, if you read the details of the story in the Megillah, it's not so dominant, but it's there, it's written there very clearly, and many of the people of the world started believing. Either they decided to become Jewish, or they were honoring the Jews, or they were seeing favor in the Jews, meaning exactly as I'm saying, when the Jews were under this threat of genocide, because the Jews did actions that caused God's response in that fashion. They created their own problem, so to speak. Obviously, they weren't looking to get killed. But by prioritizing people, and by feeling that people have a power over you, this is what led to them being susceptible to people, to Ahasuerus and Haman. But when they returned to God, and they returned to God so deeply, this caused, not just that they were so close to God, it caused people all over the world to come closer to God, which is exactly this point. That when we're doing it right, people all over the world, sensitive people, obviously there were still Jew haters around because 75,000 of them got killed. So obviously there were people that were not susceptible and open to this influence, but there were many people that were. There were many people that are more sensitive, more spiritual, more open to goodness, more open to God. And when the energy of the Jews was so strong because the Jews were so turning to God, many people in the world picked up on this and they also connected to God. And that's what had happened. So maybe that's what's happening now in our world as we come so close to the redemption. Maybe there's enough good energy out there from some of the Jews that it's really helping people all over the world. Totally unaware. Not that the Jew knows you, not that you know them. Totally unaware. But the energy is out there in the world. And maybe this is what's helping you wherever you are in your own little corner. Just find it. Thank you for that affirmation. Maybe. That's what I'm thinking. that, that could be why we see such a movement all over the world. Does this make sense to anyone else out there? Have they felt this? Like, they sometimes wonder, what woke me up? What made me connect to the truth? What made me aware of it? Sometimes it's just, well, I happened to meet this person, or this person happened to tell me something. I happened to be searching on the web and found. And sometimes it's a very dedicated journey, very searching for truth.
I think mine was a really long journey. And Cyril, I know you know a lot about it, but I think once I became a mother and had that responsibility of what comes with that, really made me aware of the importance of our connection to God and what we're doing in this world. So I think that's really when my connection just sparked, honestly.
Well, that's so beautiful. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that here, but that makes so much sense because when you are a mother, it's so funny you said that. I was just thinking that a few minutes ago, literally. And maybe I picked up your brainwaves. I was just thinking this idea of, like, someone that is a Noachide, but how do they convey it to the next generation? How? Because oh, really? That's special because there's a whole world that's saying such different messages to your children. There's a world that just, not trying to, just it's giving very different messages, and your children are just, sponges for everything. So it really requires especially if you live in a place where there is no network, no physical network of connections. It really requires so much. The home has to be such a cauldron, like has to be so much warmth, and godliness has to be cooking in the home, emerging, creating such energy that it just keeps the kids knowing this is the truth and everything out there is not. And it's huge. It's a huge job that God's entrusting in you, to give you these precious souls and to say, I trust you. You'll do good with them. You'll give them that strength. And I think the truth of what Danielle said, I think that's true for all people, or at least for many, that when you have children, you might look at your whole life a little differently, and your whole relationships. Thank you for joining, Becca. Yeah, we do have to end now. That's true, but I'm glad you were on. I'm glad you were able to talk and to chat. But obviously not everyone marries to have children, or sometimes people became Noachides like way after their children were already older, so they didn't really have the opportunity to have these young children that they could really help see the truth when they're really young, so they're much more open and accepting of the messages of their parents. So sometimes it's not the road God's giving you, or not an easy road, but it's really but when you have the opportunity, when you found the Noahide, you found God, and the children are young enough that you have many, many, many days, many, many hours to just create for them that home, that they can just absorb that energy. Yeah, it's really a gift, because they need to be so strong, to stick with the truth that their parents found, but that they have to acquire as their truth as well. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for being part of it tonight. And I really appreciate everyone that came on. And God willing, you should have a very blessed week. Thank you. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.